what we can see from Gibbs Model is that it provides a process for the reflective practitioner to engage in very deep thinking, critical thinking about their practice. And this reflection, this thinking, is aimed at not only gaining a better understanding, but also enriching their teaching practice. And as such, this level of reflection, this deep reflection, has a number of key elements to it. Firstly, the element in relation to each of these 6 stages is about making sense of experience. And the important thing for the reflective practitioner here is to understand that we don't always learn from experience. And so what we're doing in terms of deep thinking, critical thinking, in each of these stages is trying to make sense of the experience and trying to make meaning for ourselves from that experience. Another element that we have to consider here is about how objective we can be about that experience, or in other words, standing back. And it can be very hard to reflect objectively in relation to each of these 6 stages, simply because as teachers we are involved in the experience. But what we need to do by applying critical thinking processes is enable ourselves to stand back and therefore be much more objective about the experience. Another element that we need to consider is about repetition. The Gibbs model is a cycle, and each stage of this cycle is an opportunity for us to go over a number of times, to have a number of iterations in relation to our thinking about the experience from each of the stage points. And what this does is helps us see things with greater clarity and with more depth. Another element we need to consider is about being honest in relation to each of the stages. And critical thinking helps us get a much deeper, richer honesty in relation to our reflection. And as such, the critical thinking that we can apply to each of these stages is a way for us to dig down deep into the experience and try to find the truth of it, try to understand the core causes of that experience. And through reflection, therefore, we can begin to acknowledge all the things which are difficult, and perhaps the things which are difficult for us normally to admit through the normal course of events. And by applying critical thinking, we can begin to move away from vague and unsure reflections to much more rich and robust reflections. The 5th element we consider is about weighing up the evidence. And what critical thinking helps us do here is be very even-handed, be very balanced in our reflection, in our judgments of the experience that we've had, and not to be too critical or too obvious about the reflection. The next element we can consider is about gaining clarity through applying critical thinking processes to the model. And by doing this, by gaining greater clarity, it's in a way like the teacher looking in a mirror and seeing themselves and critically looking at every aspect of themselves. And in this way, what the reflective practitioner is able to do is to gain much more clarity about their role in their teaching and their role in relation to particular experiences. Another element that we need to consider is about developing understanding by applying critical thinking processes. And in this way, by developing greater understanding, we're getting much better insights, not only into our roles as teachers, but into our roles as learners in the teaching environment. Another element we need to consider is about making judgments. Reflection involves elements of drawing conclusions, making decisions in order to move forward, to create change, and also to develop the roles and responsibilities, the approaches and the strategies that we apply in our teaching.